Welcome back again. Going back to the old-fashioned, freely scripted riffing form of production that I used to do more of. I tilted a bit more into the more scripted variety of content, but I thought I'd just return and just speak from whatever is here right now, kind of as I suppose, a guided meditation, a guided contemplation, whatever way you wish to conceptualize things. Because often we do go about life constantly conceptualizing it, constantly imposing a certain narrative, a story that we live by, a story that paints us as the protagonist, going about the world with various missions and objectives, a meaning structure, ultimately. Perhaps it's important to have a meaning structure, to have a sense of direction, a sense of control over what is going on, why you are doing what you are doing. Perhaps it's too uncomfortable to sit and surrender truly with the unknown, the fact that perhaps we are not in control of our fate. We wish to control our fate so much. That's why manifestation is such a prolific and popular thing within most spiritual circles. The ego wishes to manifest the world and life that it most desires. It does not want a world that inflicts harm upon them. It wants a world that supports and nourishes itself. And we shouldn't, I suppose, look down upon this basic desire of life itself to carve out a kind of section of reality that supports it and nourishes it. However, we should not fall deep into the illusion that life will always provide this. Life is very much a case of, self-consumption. Life is feeding upon life. Food that we eat. Whether you're a carnivore or a herbivore or an omnivore, you are consuming and feeding upon life. Just because plants don't scream does not mean that you are consuming life form, essentially. Now, I'm not going to go into any sort of ethical territory regarding nutrition, but I want to really orient our perception to see life and spirit as immanent and ever present within creation. Even the consciousness of a chair, for example. Now, a chair does not have the same sentience and consciousness, obviously, that a human organism has, or an animal like a cat or a dog. It's a very different structure and pattern within reality, but it does hold a certain form of consciousness as an appearance here. Like, I feel the chair, I'm sitting on it. If I knock it, I can create a sound, and that sound itself is another appearance within consciousness. Obviously, the chair is not an entity or a life form in the way that most life is. It doesn't move in a purposeful manner. I think that's, the definition of this is autopoiesis. Autopoiesis essentially means that something moves about reality in a deliberate and non-random way, in a self-making way, it maintains itself amidst the disorder and chaos of the world. Sorry, I just knocked my table. You see, we do not move about reality in a random way, obviously, because if we did move about it in a random way, we would die very quickly. We have to move about it in a deliberate way. We have to have certain preferences, something that we are attracted to, something that we are averse to. We are naturally averse to pain, because pain is a signal of something that is disruptive and damaging to our physiological and physical integrity, and we're attracted to things which support us, which nourish us, whether it's certain foods, mating opportunities, safety, environmental safety. There's I suppose an evolutionary aspect to this, and how the constraints of evolution shape the emergence of life in a particular way. But within the human, we're not just concerned, I feel, about these evolutionary aspects. Life doesn't begin and end with just survival and reproduction. As much as, I suppose, more Darwinian inclined people wish to argue, they wish to reduce life to the metrics of evolution, which reduces it really to sex and survival. Now, sex and survival are important. They're very primordial dimensions to reality. But I suppose as well, in our culture, we do seem to have, or within my culture, Western culture, we seem to have desacralized sex. We don't really see the sacred element of it. It's very much a masturbatory thing that we do with another body, rather than a sacred union that is done between two consciousnesses. But that's a side wander within my mind. I suppose what is sort of occurring to me right now is the contemplation of values, contemplation of ultimate transcendental values. And how do we discover that? Because we say the values that are often sex driven, or the values that are survival driven, this sort of the will to life, as Schopenhauer would have put it. The basic, obviously, if someone is attacking you, you will naturally enter into a stress response, a survival response, which reveals that your body, in a very deep cellular level, will wish to protect itself. And that reveals a deep preference within you. And as well, when talking about sex, we are naturally sexually reproducing beings. When you go through the transition of puberty, obviously various changes occur within your hormonal system, your neurochemistry. You start to see the world differently. You start to experience certain sexual sensations differently, which reveal this primordial aspect of life which wishes to reproduce itself. And that's a kind of value, a very bodily value. But beyond the body, what is the values that lie beyond the body? This taps into the metaphysical ideas regarding truth and goodness, beauty. Think about music, for example. There's a kind of beauty in the creation of music, in the listening to music, and the experience itself. But what is it exactly? Um, you can't. Listening to a song doesn't age your survival, maybe, or it doesn't age your reproductive success. It's just a kind of a love for music simply for what it is. At least that's how I sort of feel about music. Yes, music can help me enter into a certain state of consciousness. It can calm me down, it can amp me up. But sometimes it's just, I love it for its own sake. You see, we don't have to do stuff constantly for something else. And this gets into the whole thing about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. A lot of us go through life doing something so that we may acquire something else, constantly looking ahead towards the future, and we are becoming dissociated from the now, dissociated from lived direct experience. But if we live in a mode of being that prioritizes intrinsic motivation, that prioritizes the things that we enjoy doing, not for what it may get us, but simply for what it is. When we prioritize that mode of being, we are not looking ahead, we're looking straight at what is. We're lost in the moment, we're lost in the flow of being. And this is a very playful state of consciousness. I think the element of play comes up for it when we really tap into it. And when we look at children, they're always in play most of the time if they're not traumatized. They're always in play, they're always in the moment, they're not worrying their consciousness with all this bullshit that adults are often conditioned into. So I think that if we are to cultivate transcendental values, the highest form of values, we need to cultivate really play in our life. Play with the sense of flow, and play with situations, and play with life itself. Play is a protest against a world that wishes to oppress you with seriousness, oppress you with stress and anxiety, with the obligations of adulthood. Play is a quiet act of revolution, I think. And it's also an act which heals your inner child. And it's a very free and liberating and open state of being. And you know you are in this sort of a playful flow when you're just being. You know, the philosopher Eric Fromm had this distinction between the being mode and the having mode. And he criticizes modern culture, our modern materialistically driven culture, for too emphasizing this having mode of being, this mode of being which looks upon reality in terms of what I can get, what I can acquire, more stuff, more money, more, trinkets. And we get so caught up in this having mode of being that we neglect the being mode, that we neglect what is right in front of us. We neglect consciousness itself because we're so obsessed with material, worldly concerns. Our world shrinks really, and we stop paying attention to it. You see, the child is such a blank state. I mean, obviously, it's not fully a blank slate, but it's unconditioned, it's raw, it's curious about the reality. And a child is thoroughly in the being mode because it has not learned, it has not been conditioned into looking upon the world in terms of valuing material acquisition. They haven't been carved into that state of consciousness. They haven't been carved into a state of perpetual dissatisfaction with what they have. They haven't been taught to want more, to worry constantly about money. This money consciousness has corrupted so much of what is most meaningful and most valuable. People are like cattle now, just reduce their jobs, slaving away, but ignorant of their slave consciousness. They think they're free. But what are we to do about this? It isn't all doom and gloom. It's powers that be, whoever they may be, the social engineers, the people behind the curtain, the puppet masters. They're us. They're within us. They're not some shadowy cabal out there. They're us. We limit ourselves. We disempower ourselves, but it is also our responsibility to empower ourselves. Yes, the world is an oppressive structure in many ways. The matrix. It wishes to keep you asleep. It wishes to dull you into servitude and submission. And many people will do this because many people do not have the courage to stand up for higher ethical values, particularly today. And you can look upon the herd and you can condemn them for what they want, but it's pointless. It's pointless to have judgment. What you should work upon is really your own frequency, your own mind, your own peace, and become a beacon for other people to become more playful, to become more free, to know themselves. Know yourself. Know who you are. And work on yourself. Love yourself. It's very simple. You don't need to complexify it. You should watch the concepts and the thoughts and the beliefs that percolate in your awareness. Watch them very attentively. And if you have a bad thought, you have a bad thought. If you have a good thought, you have a good thought. It's okay. It's okay to be flawed. It's okay to not know where you're going. It's okay to be in a rut. It's okay to feel happy. It's okay to be proud of who you are and where you're going. Just stop judging yourself with this puritanical expectation of being perfect. You see, when you are in a loving mode of being, you're in a playful mode of being, and you're in a non-judgmental mode of being as well. But yeah, I'll leave that at that. Goodbye.